I pulled into the driveway expecting a hug, maybe some laughter through the windows. Not this. The house was still. Not everyone's just napping quiet. I mean dead silent. No cars. No porch lights. No signs of life. For a moment, I thought I'd gotten the wrong day. I double-checked the message. See you Saturday, 3 p.m. sharp. Don't be late, we've missed you. Mom, it was Saturday. It was 3:02 p.m. I stepped out of my car, heart already sinking, and walked up to the front door of the home I grew up in. It should have been warm, familiar, but something in the air felt off, cold, almost. I knocked, waited, rang the doorbell. Silence. The doorknob turned without resistance. That's when I really knew, something was wrong. The house was spotless. Like no one had even been there. No bags by the door, no signs of last-minute packing, no open suitcase on the couch or shoes scattered by the stairs. It was empty. Just me and the growing dread in my chest. Then I saw it. On the kitchen table. An envelope with my name, Aiden, written in all caps like an afterthought. I stared at it for a long second, then opened it with shaky hands. Hey Aiden, we left for Florida early. We figured you needed some rest anyway, always working. So we handled it all. Took care of the flights and the hotel. Used a little help from your savings. You're the most generous one in the family. And let's be honest, you can afford it. We'll pay you back soon. Enjoy the peace and quiet. Love, Mom and Dad. I read it twice, 3 times. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. They used my savings. They flew to Florida without me. They left me a note. The anger didn't come right away. At first, I just stood there, frozen, confused, my heart thudding in my ears. I looked around at the house that raised me, the same one I'd practically been paying to maintain for years. All those memories came flooding back. Every time I gave up something I wanted because the family needed me. And now, this, they didn't just leave me out, they stole from me. Straight up theft. Dressed up with a smiley face and a you can afford it. Something inside me cracked. This wasn't the first time. I was 14 the first time they made it clear who I was to them. I just made the varsity soccer team. Freshman. First try. Coach said I had raw talent. Told me to keep showing up and working hard. I was buzzing with pride. I ran home ready to tell my parents, but before I even finished, my dad cut in. That's great. But who's going to help with your brother's science project this weekend? My mom chimed in like a reflex. And the baby needs watching. We can't afford a sitter again. So instead of celebrating, I ended up babysitting and building a volcano out of paper mache. I quit the team 2 weeks later, and that was just the beginning. At 17, I got a scholarship to a prestigious college across the country, full ride. It was my ticket out. But when I brought up the move, Mom looked heartbroken. You're leaving us? Now? When your dad's hours just got cut? Dad didn't even look at me. He just muttered, "Family sticks together." Translation, you don't get to leave. We need your money. So I stayed, took night classes at the local community college, got a job at a gas station during the day, paid half the rent, even though I didn't have a bedroom, just a mattress in the laundry room. That money I was saving back then, that was for me, for my future, my freedom. And now they just helped themselves to it like it belonged to them. I sat on the couch and pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. I swear I stopped breathing for a second. $52,903.17. Gone. Vanished. Years of scrimping and saving. Every skipped vacation. Every I'll eat ramen this week so I can invest next month. Every time I told myself, this will be worth it later, I felt sick. They'd spent it. On plane tickets, hotel rooms, probably cocktails by the pool and matching t-shirts that say beach vibes only. I called my mom. Voicemail. Dad? Voicemail. My younger brother, Brandon? Voicemail. My sister? Sent me to voicemail mid-ring. They weren't just avoiding me. They knew. They planned this. I texted the family group chat. Where is my money? Nothing. I texted my mom directly. Did you seriously think I wouldn't notice? Silence. Then, finally, a ping from Brandon. Dude, chill. You're literally fine. You make more than all of us combined. It's just a temporary loan. You'll be okay. A temporary loan? No, no, no. I didn't agree to lend them anything. I didn't even know they were planning this trip. They didn't ask. They just took. And apparently, they thought I'd just swallow it. Again, here's what they didn't expect. I'm not the same person I was at 14 or 17 or even 25. I'm 31 now, and I've had enough. For once in my life, I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to act. I opened my laptop and started the paperwork. Fraud claim with the bank. Check. Account freezes. Check. Password changes. Authorization locks. Boom. No more just a little help withdrawals. No more can you co-sign this real quick. They drained me dry without a second thought. But they forgot something. I don't stay down. Not anymore. I don't think there's a single moment where you realize your family doesn't actually see you as a person. It's more like a slow build, like bricks stacking up behind your back until you turn around and realize they've built a wall with your name on it, and you were the foundation. That night, after freezing every account they could touch, I sat in my apartment, staring at the ceiling while the hum of the fridge filled the silence. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way people expect. It was colder than that. I was past the fire. I was in the quiet part, the steel part of betrayal where you don't even cry because there's nothing left to grieve. They hadn't just taken my money. They'd confirmed something I'd been trying to ignore for years. I wasn't their son, their brother. I was their investment. And they just cashed out without warning. The next morning, I took a personal day from work, something I rarely did, because I needed time to think and move. The bank had already flagged the transactions and opened an investigation. They said the process could take a few weeks, but the fact that I filed it at all already changed everything. If my parents thought they could sweep this under the rug with some half apology and a promise to make it right, they were in for a rude awakening. I wasn't doing hush deals anymore. I wasn't cleaning up their messes behind the scenes. I had already sent every document to a lawyer I'd found online the night before. His assistant called back within the hour. We're definitely looking at unauthorized access and potential civil fraud, she said, like it was just another Tuesday. For her, maybe it was. For me, it was the first time I'd ever put myself first and not felt like I was betraying someone. I drove to their office that afternoon. Walking through those doors, I felt more in control than I had in years. I explained everything, showed them the bank statements, the withdrawals, the email confirmation for the flights my parents had booked in my name using my savings, and the note. I showed them the actual note they'd left me like it was a joke, like I'd just laugh it off and go back to work while they sip margaritas in Orlando. The attorney barely raised an eyebrow. We can file for civil action and fraud. We'll send a letter of demand first. If they don't respond, we escalate. I nodded. It felt surreal. These were my parents we were talking about, the same people who raised me. But that word didn't mean what it used to. Not anymore. On the way home, I got a text from my sister. Mom says you're making a big deal out of nothing. Just come talk to us. I stared at my phone, wondering if she really believed that or if she was just trying to keep the peace. But then again, maybe that was the problem. For years, I'd been keeping the peace, which really meant staying quiet while they chipped away at my sanity and savings. I didn't reply. I was done having conversations that led nowhere. That night, I finally allowed myself to sit down and look back, not just at the stolen money, but at every instance where I'd said yes when I should have said no. The time I covered Brandon's rent for 6 months, because he lost his job but was somehow still buying concert tickets and gaming gear. The time I co-signed my parents' second mortgage because they didn't want to downsize and lose their lifestyle, even though I was living in a one-bedroom with a leaky kitchen faucet. Or the time my sister asked me to help her start a business, and I handed over a 5-figure loan she never repaid because things didn't work out. And apparently that made the debt disappear. Every favor was expected. Every refusal came with guilt. And every single time, I told myself it was just what families did. But they weren't acting like a family. They were acting like shareholders in a company I didn't remember signing up for. And when the company stopped profiting, they bailed and blamed me. A week passed, then another. The silence stretched, but I knew they were talking. Just not to me. Probably scheming. Probably assuming I'd back down. They didn't believe I'd follow through, but I did. The demand letter went out. The official kind, written in tight legal language and certified for delivery. They had 10 business days to respond. On day 4, Brandon called. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. Bro, seriously? You're suing mom and dad? What the hell is wrong with you? You know they didn't mean any harm. We're family. You're really going to burn it all down over some money? I replayed it once, twice. I had to hear the tone again. There was no apology, no regret, just annoyance. Like I'd become the villain for finally saying enough. It was like watching a magician yell at the audience. When someone finally figured out the trick, they weren't mad I was hurt. They were mad I noticed. 2 days later, my lawyer called. They responded. Through a family friend who's not even licensed. The reply isn't legally valid, but it confirms one thing: they're scared. Good. They should be. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about drawing a line. A real one. One they couldn't pretend didn't exist. I sat with that realization for a long time that night. I wasn't doing this to punish them. I was doing this to protect myself. From here on out, I wouldn't be the fallback plan, the silent donor, the emotional sponge. They wanted me to feel guilty. They wanted me to feel selfish. But I didn't. I felt free. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone else to value me. I was valuing myself. A few days later, the legal team moved forward with the next step: civil action. They'd had their chance to make it right. They ignored it, dismissed it. Now it was official. My parents were being sued by their eldest son. Brandon sent another message, this one angrier. I hope you're happy. You've torn this family apart. But the truth was, they tore it apart years ago. I just finally stopped pretending the cracks weren't there. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The only thing left was the fallout. The first court date came faster than I expected. It wasn't some dramatic courtroom showdown like in movies. Just a hearing, quiet and clean, where the facts were laid out and the judge confirmed that yes, the funds had been moved without my permission. No joint account agreement, no written consent. Just digital footprints leading straight from my savings into a week of beachfront cocktails and theme park tickets. Their lawyer, some family friend who barely looked at me, tried to argue it was a misunderstanding. Said it was a family arrangement gone slightly off track. But the bank records didn't lie, and neither did the withdrawal timestamps. It was intentional. It was theft. When I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow, like a part of me was still waiting for anyone to stop this train before it hit the wall. I kept wondering if they'd call, if they'd show up, if someone would finally say, "We're sorry, Aiden. We were wrong." But nobody did. Not mom, not dad, not even Brandon, who had the audacity to post a blurry selfie from their Florida trip while I was home, scrambling to fix the mess they left behind. Caption said, "Family first always." The irony almost made me laugh. That weekend, I got a visit, unannounced. I heard the knock and knew before I opened the door. It was Dad. Same leather jacket he's worn since I was a kid. Same heavy steps. Same look in his eyes that always made me second-guess myself. He didn't say much, just stared for a moment, then asked if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He sat at the edge of the couch like he didn't belong in the space I built. Maybe he didn't. He looked tired, angry too. Not the kind of angry that comes from guilt, though more like the kind that builds when people finally get held accountable and don't like how it feels. He told me I was making things worse. That suing my own parents was cruel, that I was tearing the family apart over money. I asked him, plain and calm, what he thought would happen when they used 50 grand from my account without asking. He waved it off like I was being sensitive, said I was blowing things out of proportion, told me I should have talked to them first, not run to the courts. That's when I knew nothing I said would ever land. Nothing would change. They weren't sorry. They were embarrassed. That's all. Embarrassed that their perfect son had finally stopped playing along. I told him he should leave. He stood slowly, looked around one last time, and said something that stuck with me. "You used to be loyal. You used to take care of us." Then he walked out. Loyalty. That word rolled around in my head for days. Funny how people use it when they mean obedience. What he called loyalty was me sacrificing everything for them while they did whatever they wanted without consequence. That wasn't loyalty. That was exploitation with a pretty bow. The fallout came fast after that. The court ruled in my favor. Some funds had already been spent. but the rest had been frozen and were returned. They were ordered to repay the remainder. That's when things got real for them. The house, my childhood home, the one I had helped refinance when they were drowning in bills, was on the chopping block. They couldn't cover the new debt, and with their credit tanking from the legal proceedings, options were limited. Foreclosure became more than a threat. It became a countdown. Brandon tried calling again, left a voicemail full of blame, said I was destroying everything over a little money. I deleted it without listening to the end. The only person who surprised me was my sister. She sent a message short, quiet, just said she was sorry, not for what happened, not even for taking part, just a vague apology with no weight. I didn't reply. I wasn't interested in recycled guilt or half-baked closure. A week later, Mom finally called. I let it ring. Then she called again, and again. I answered on the 5th try. Her voice was smaller than I remembered, like someone who'd been crying on and off for hours. She didn't yell, didn't beg. She just said, "We didn't think you'd go this far." That sentence told me everything. They didn't think I'd actually draw the line. They didn't believe I had the spine to put myself first. I told her it was never about going far. It was about going finally, about stopping the cycle. She said they might lose the house, that they couldn't pay what was owed, that Dad was furious, and Brandon's relationship was falling apart because of the stress. I listened without interruption. Then I asked one question. "Do you regret taking the money, or do you just regret that I fought back?" She went silent. I waited, but the answer never came, just breathing on the other end of the line. Eventually, I hung up. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. People think the hardest part of betrayal is the moment you find out. It's not. The hardest part is the slow, creeping realization that they never saw it as betrayal. They saw it as normal, as deserved, as your role in the family. That night, I made peace with what I'd done, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. I hadn't destroyed the family. I'd stopped pretending it was whole. Over the next few weeks, everything started to shift. The foreclosure process advanced. Brandon stopped posting on social media altogether. My sister unfollowed me on every platform. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was clean, empty, and freeing. At work, I found myself more focused, sharper. The first started hitting personal goals faster, not because I was trying harder, but because the mental weight was gone. I had space. I had time. For the first time in years, I was living my own life. No constant requests, no hidden guilt, just me. People think revenge looks like rage, like screaming matches or broken dishes or slashed tires, but that's not real revenge. Real revenge is peace. Real revenge is building a life so solid, so untouchable, that the people who once controlled you can't even reach the edge of it. Real revenge is silence. It's moving on so fully that they can't follow. I didn't want them to suffer. I wanted them to understand, and maybe they never would, but that wasn't my burden to carry anymore. It's strange how fast your body adjusts once you stop living in defense mode, like your brain finally believes it's allowed to breathe. I started sleeping better, not just more hours, but deeper, quieter, the kind of rest that doesn't come with dread sitting on your chest. My mornings changed. I wasn't waking up to 3 missed calls or passive-aggressive texts about bills or favors. No more, "Hey, can you just," or "You're the only one who can help." Just silence. And it was beautiful. My apartment finally felt like mine, not a temporary station between emergencies. I replaced the old couch I'd had since college, hung new art, subscribed to a wine club just because I could. Every small change felt like a declaration. I am here. I am free. My work life reflected the shift too. I wasn't just getting through projects, I was owning them. Leading meetings, landing clients, solving things without that fog in my brain. When you stop living for everyone else, it's wild how much energy you have left for yourself. Then came something unexpected, or maybe just overdue. I met someone. Her name's Elise. We were at a networking event, both awkwardly hanging back near the coffee bar, while everyone else did the whole business card dance. She made a joke about how the pastries were the only reason she showed up, and I laughed harder than I had in months. We ended up talking for over an hour, not about work, not about money, just life. Books, childhood stories, ridiculous exes, favorite places to disappear for a weekend. It was easy, honest. No games, no expectations. We started seeing each other casually, slow, natural, no pressure. I didn't tell her everything at first, not because I was hiding it, but because for once, I wanted something that wasn't rooted in damage control. When I finally did tell her, she didn't flinch, just listened, nodded, and said, "That sounds like something you've survived, not something that defines you." That hit deeper than she probably knew. And maybe that's what healing actually looks like. Not some big dramatic moment, just the quiet, steady decision to keep showing up for yourself. Meanwhile, the fallout back home continued. The house was officially listed. A neighbor I still followed on social media posted a photo with the caption "End of an era." Hope the next family brings some peace to that place. That word peace, it stuck, because that house had never been peaceful. It had been a battleground painted over with polite dinners and fake smiles. A place where love meant sacrifice, and sacrifice meant silence. Brandon moved into a rental across town with his girlfriend, or fiancée. I couldn't keep up anymore. Last I heard, they were struggling to keep up with rent and bills. Something about needing to sell his car to stay afloat. I didn't gloat. There was no satisfaction in it, just a strange sense of balance. The scales tipping back to where they should have been all along. My sister went quiet too. I knew she'd taken out a personal loan to try to cover some of what they owed, but it barely made a dent. Her business, the one I'd helped fund years ago, had quietly closed. No more posts, no more ads, just a silent disappearance. That was the thing about dependency. They'd built a whole lifestyle on the assumption that I would always be there to keep it running. And once I stepped away, it all collapsed. I didn't feel guilty. I felt real. I'd spent so much time being the version of myself they needed that I forgot I was allowed to have needs too. Elise noticed it before I did. One night, we were watching something stupid on Netflix, and I casually mentioned how weird it felt not being needed. She looked at me, kind but firm, and said, "You were never needed. You were used." And there's a difference. That one sentence stayed with me, not in a haunting way, in a freeing one, because deep down, I already knew it. I just hadn't let myself believe it. We grow up thinking that love looks like giving, that the more you bend, the more you prove you care. But at some point, if no one's bending back, all you're doing is breaking. The final confirmation came 2 months after the judgment. I got a letter in the mail. Not typed, not formal. Just my mom's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it out, but curiosity won. Inside was a single page. No apology, no explanation. Just a short paragraph saying they were disappointed in how things turned out, that they hoped I'd come to my senses before it was too late. Before what was too late, I had no idea. But it didn't matter. The letter wasn't about me. It was about their version of me. The version that kept giving, kept fixing, kept returning. And that version was gone. I folded the letter and tossed it in a drawer. Not out of spite. Just closure. I didn't need to respond. Some stories don't need sequels, they need endings. A week later, Elise and I took a trip. Nothing big, just a cabin in the mountains. No signal, no distractions. We hiked, we cooked, we read books in front of the fire like some rom-com cliche. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just escaping something, I was living something new, something real. The peace I'd been craving didn't come from revenge. It came from return, not returning to them, returning to myself. The version I had buried under obligation and guilt and tradition. The version who wanted more than survival. The version who wanted a full life. I still get messages sometimes. From old friends who heard about what happened. From distant relatives asking for my side. I don't give them one. I've told the story to the only person who mattered me. And I'm still telling it, not because it's over, but because it's evolving. Healing isn't a straight line. Some days I still catch myself flinching when my phone rings, or feeling that tug in my chest when I see family photos online. But then I remember I did what I had to do, and I did it with honesty. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're clarity. And I've never been clearer. This was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming. And what I've reclaimed is more than money. It's my time, my dignity, my future. They can keep their disappointment. I'll keep my peace. I didn't expect the knock. Not after months of silence. Not after I'd finally started living like the past didn't own me anymore. It was a rainy afternoon. the kind that made everything outside blur into soft gray, and I was mid-laundry when I heard it. Just 3 soft raps on the door. I thought maybe it was a delivery or a neighbor, but the second I opened it, I knew I was wrong. My mother stood there, umbrella dripping, hair frizzed, face tired. Not just the kind of tired that comes from a bad night's sleep, the kind that settles in deep when you've run out of people to lean on. She looked older, not dramatically, not in a way that made me gasp, just more fragile, like the years had finally caught up with her and maybe guilt had too. I didn't say anything at first, neither did she. She just looked up at me with that familiar expression she used to wear when I was a kid, like I held the answer to a question she wasn't ready to ask. After a long moment, I stepped aside and let her in, not because I owed her, not because I wanted to hear more excuses, but because I wanted closure, and I knew this was probably my only chance to say what had been living in my chest for far too long. She walked in slowly, eyes darting around like she was trying to understand who I'd become by looking at my furniture. I waited, let her speak first. She said she'd come alone. That dad didn't want to face me. That Brandon and my sister had moved on, though the way she said it didn't sound like pride. It sounded like loss. Then she said it. We were wrong, Aiden. About everything. We didn't think it through. We just assumed you'd be okay with it. You always were. I didn't respond right away. Not because I was angry, but because I needed her to sit in the weight of her own words for a second. I asked her calmly if she understood what she'd actually done. If she understood that this wasn't just about money, that it was about every single time I said no and got guilt instead of grace. About the years I spent cleaning up after their mistakes while they called it family. About the fact that when I finally stopped giving, they didn't just push back, they punished me. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just nodded slowly, hands folded in her lap like she was praying to stay grounded. Then she whispered something that caught me off guard. I think we thought of you as the strong one because you never broke. And we used that. We leaned too hard. For a second, I felt something crack. Not pity, not forgiveness, just recognition. Like finally hearing someone say out loud what I'd been screaming internally for decades. But it didn't change the facts. I told her I didn't hate them, that I didn't want to ruin anyone's life. I just wanted to stop sacrificing mine. I told her I was building something for myself now, something real, something earned. And I couldn't bring old debts into it, not financial, not emotional. She nodded again, and for once, she didn't ask for anything. No favor, no second chance, no emotional handout. She stood up, thanked me for letting her in, and walked to the door. Right before she stepped out, she turned and said, "You were a good son. We just weren't good parents." And then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and I stood there for a long time, wondering why I didn't feel the weight I thought I would. Maybe because I finally understood that closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes from knowing you don't need one to move forward. Elise came home later that evening and found me on the couch, still holding the mug of coffee I'd made hours earlier. She didn't ask what happened. She just sat beside me, leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You look like someone who just unpacked something heavy." I smiled, not because it was funny, because she was right. The next week, I finally booked the trip I'd been putting off for years. Europe. A few countries, no plan, just time and motion. Elise offered to come with me, but I told her I needed to go alone, not to escape, to arrive, to fully arrive at the version of myself I'd always postponed. I packed light, a single carry-on, passport, journal, no more baggage than necessary. The plane ride felt like flying away from an old chapter, one I had rewritten line by line until it no longer resembled the version I grew up with. Each city felt like a gift. Walking through cobblestone streets, ordering food in broken phrases, watching the world move without me trying to control any of it, it was everything I didn't know I needed. One afternoon in Lisbon, I sat in a tiny cafe with my journal open and wrote something I didn't even realize was true until it left my pen. I don't miss them. I miss who I thought they were. That sentence stayed with me the rest of the trip because that was the real grief, not losing my family, but losing the illusion that they were ever the kind of people I could count on. The version I kept defending didn't exist. They were a story I told myself to make their behavior easier to swallow. And now I didn't need to keep swallowing. By the time I got back home, everything felt lighter. Elise picked me up from the airport with 2 coffees and a smile that said, "Welcome back," without saying a word. I told her about the trip, about the people, the food, the way time slows down when you let go of guilt. She listened like she always did, with her whole face, her whole heart. Then she asked, "So what's next?" And I said, without hesitation, life. Because that's what it was now, not survival, not obligation, just life, mine clean, unborrowed, fully owned. I still get the occasional holiday text, a Merry Christmas here, a happy birthday there. I don't respond, not out of spite, just out of choice, because that chapter is over. It doesn't get a sequel. And if they ever truly change, they'll understand that my silence isn't anger, it's peace. The kind of peace I earned one no at a time. Time does something strange when you finally stop measuring it by how much you owe everyone else. It stretches in the best way, like sunlight through clean windows. That first month back from Europe, I didn't make any big declarations. I didn't write some viral post about family betrayal or revenge. I didn't even talk about it much, because at that point the story wasn't about them anymore. It was about me, waking up when I wanted, walking to the coffee shop down the street without checking messages, or wondering what obligation was waiting around the corner. My life got small in the best ways. Slow mornings, long dinners, honest conversations that didn't require performance. I started taking photos again, not for social media, just for me. Light on glass, birds on wires, rain curling down tree trunks. All the things I used to miss when my head was full of noise that didn't belong to me. Elise noticed the difference before I did. She said I moved differently now, like I wasn't bracing anymore. Like the weight I carried in my shoulders had finally shifted. And maybe that was true. I didn't walk like I was waiting to be needed. I just walked. The world became full of little freedoms. Saying no without guilt. Saying yes without fear. Leaving texts unread if they felt like traps. Choosing where my money went and who it served. I hired a financial advisor and set up boundaries I should have built a decade ago. Separate accounts, no shared credit cards, no family cosigns. I even changed my emergency contacts, not out of cruelty, out of logic. I wanted the people who showed up for me, not the ones who showed up for what I could do. Holidays were the strangest part. The first Thanksgiving, Elise invited me to her cousin's house. Loud, chaotic, full of people I didn't know but kind. I brought dessert and was thanked like I brought treasure. No one asked what I did for a living. No one measured my worth by how many people depended on me. They just passed the gravy and made room at the table. I didn't cry, but something inside me exhaled, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally remembered how to let it go. Christmas came and went. My phone buzzed a few times, but I ignored it. Instead, Elise and I rented a cabin up north. Snow, firewood, blankets. The kind of stillness that makes everything louder in your own heart. We talked a lot that weekend, not about the past, about what came next, about building something together, about what it means to choose a life instead of inheriting one that never fit. I told her everything, the full story. From the first time I gave up a dream for someone else to the last time I said no and meant it. She didn't interrupt, just held my hand and said, "You're not broken. You were just used. And now you're not." That stayed with me, because I think part of me believed the damage was permanent, that I'd always be the guy looking over his shoulder, waiting for the next demand, the next guilt trip, the next phone call that turned into a favor disguised as love. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I was someone else, someone I'd worked to become. And not just in spite of the past, but because I finally refused to live in it. The lawsuit had long been resolved by then. The repayment stalled halfway, but my lawyer had already locked everything into place. Liens, wage garnishments, frozen accounts. The system did its part. I never saw the full amount returned, but I didn't need it. What I got back was worth more: ownership, closure, self-respect. There was no dramatic ending with my parents, no final blowout, no neat forgiveness arc wrapped in holiday ribbons, just space, distance. A door closed and no longer rattling in the wind. Brandon never apologized. My sister sent a short email months later saying she hoped I was well. I didn't reply. Some things don't need responses, they just need endings, and I gave them that. Quietly, finally, completely. Life now is something I never thought I'd have. Not because it's perfect, but because it's mine. Every decision, every boundary, every yes and no, they belong to me, and they aren't up for negotiation. I've built a career that feels right, not flashy, not performative, just fulfilling. I go to sleep without fear. I wake up without dread. I spend time with people who make me feel like I'm enough without proving it. Elise and I moved in together last spring. It wasn't a big event. No speeches or champagne, just two people choosing each other at the right time in the right way. We painted the living room together, chose a couch that fits us both, laughed at how hard it is to agree on a rug, but it felt like home, a real one, built on consent, respect, and choice. And that, more than anything, is what I've learned. That love without choice isn't love, it's control. That family isn't about blood, it's about boundaries. That survival isn't living. And that peace isn't passive, it's earned. Not through revenge, through refusal. Through the radical act of saying, I am not your resource. I am not your fix. I am not your second chance. I am mine, fully, finally, forever. Story 2, it's just a piece of paper. My relatives said, skipping my wedding to attend a party. I gave a nod. I cut off all of the money I had provided them and left their mess behind. When their world collapsed the following morning, my wedding day had always been in my mind, not at a big party. A peaceful time surrounded by the people that cared and wildflowers in a garden. Engaged to Sam at age 32. I brought it to life. A little ceremony, 20 visitors. I had fashioned myself a veil, nights without sleep. Every stitch is a pledge. I requested basic necessities from my mother, brother Jake, sister Cara, and family. A baked cake, a soundtrack, and a few folding chairs. Don't worry, we've got you, they would say, nodding. I also had faith in them. However, I phoned the day before to be sure. Mom laughed. We didn't think it was a huge thing, darling. Only a sheet of paper. Jake interrupted. Yes. Calm down. This isn't a fairy tale scenario. My heart fell. I grabbed my phone and stood in my kitchen, looking at the bouquet of wildflowers I had chosen that morning from a field. They had done nothing at all. No cake, no music, and no seats. I saw it on Instagram. Oh no. The bachelorette party for my cousin Tara. Raised subtitles, glitter champagne glasses, limousines, and yelling family first. I wasn't even considered for the invitation. I faked a grin, swallowed the hurt, and assured Sam that we would work things out. Yes, we did. I strolled to him under a string of dollar store lights that swayed in the breeze, while 10 buddies arrived with mismatched chairs from their garages. I do, I said, his fingers solid in mine, my throat tight. And in spite of them, it was lovely. However, the dam collapsed that night while we were by ourselves in our small flat. Still wearing my dress, I sobbed while sitting on the side of our bed. From the heartbreaking pain of being nothing to the family I'd carried for years. Not from the happiness of marrying Sam. They threw my day away like garbage. And I was unable to experience that sense of emptiness. The quiet, biting pain of being invisible to the people I had given everything to. The next morning, I felt a weight that would not go away. The sort that, after a night of sobbing oneself dry, settles in your bones. Sam was still sleeping. I briefly wanted to act as though yesterday had never occurred because of his gentle breathing next to me. However, I was drawn back when my phone chimed on the nightstand. I was unwilling to look. I snatched it even though I knew it would be them. As I started our family chat, my fingers were shaking. Before I could doubt myself, I typed quickly. Because of Tara's celebration, you did not attend my wedding. You weren't there when I needed you to be. As I pressed send, my heart pounded, eagerly awaiting something, anything, to put things right. Mom was the first to respond. Honey, don't overreact. This is only a formality. Big production automobiles didn't follow. We didn't anticipate you going crazy about it, geez. Calm down, Jake. Nothing. That tiny scene marker on the screen was making fun of me. Something snapped when I tightened my chest while staring at what they were saying. This was more than a simple error. I poured myself out for years, and they treated it as if it didn't matter. When Jake's DJ gig stopped coming in, he would phone me late at night pleading with me to pay his rent. $100 here for $600 here. You're the finest sister, always. After each breakup, Corey's sob tales about needing to pay her phone bill of $80 a month like clockwork. When Mom's income was low, she gave subtle clues concerning her medications. $150 was wired without inquiry. Working extra shifts at the restaurant and sacrificing vacations, I had been their anchor, telling myself that's what family does. Now, my wedding. To them, my one moment was only a piece of paper. I could no longer contain my wrath as it burned hot and stinging from the hurt. One final message was typed by me. I appreciate you letting me know where I stand. Before they could reply, I moved my thumb over the send button and hit it. I selected Leave Group after tapping the 3 tiny dots next to the chat name. The ensuing quiet was like a deep breath I hadn't had in a long time. I wasn't finished, though. With the screen's frigid glow on my face, I launched my bank app. After 2 years of Jake's Netflix account being linked to my card, Cora's most recent Venmo request for $50 with a gas pump emoji was denied. I had set up Mom's utility autopay when she nearly lost power last winter, but it stopped working. The ropes were severed with each tap. They bound me with them. I felt no remorse. I didn't think I would. Rather, my chest relaxed like if I had been holding my breath for 10 years and had finally released it. Now that my hand was steady, I put the phone down and leaned back against the headboard. The only sound in the room was the distant hum of the refrigerator. I came to the realization that I had been waiting for this, for approval to cease being their entire world. Sam rolled over with a groggy squint after stirring. "Are you all right?" His voice was rough as he mumbled. I noticed his untidy hair, the way his eyes softened when they touched mine, and the flicker of warmth in his eyes. My own. I'll be. I meant what I said. He sat up and put a hand through the blanket on my knee. "You know you owe them nothing, nothing at all." His words took hold, more than they ought to have, since I had never before allowed myself to believe them. I'd always thought love meant giving until you're hollow, that family meant carrying their weight, no matter how much it crushed you. But sitting there with Sam's hand grounding me, I saw it differently. They'd taken my trust, my time, my money, hell, my wedding, and given me scraps in return. I nodded, slow and sure, and he pulled me into his chest. I didn't cry this time. I just let myself rest there, feeling the first real crack in the wall I built to keep them in and me out. It wasn't peace. Not yet, but it was a start. A jagged little edge of something new. The next morning hit like a freight train. Not with noise, but with a flood of texts lighting up my phone before I'd even poured my coffee. I sat on our faded couch, Sam still in the shower, and watched the screen glow with their desperation. Jake first. "Yo, Netflix is down. What's wrong with your card then?" "Kara, I can't get to work. I'm out of gas. Send me $40 immediately." Mom's came last, her tone harsh. My lights flashed all night, and the heat's acting up. "Why'd you cease the payments?" I didn't respond. I just watched at the texts, building up, each one a bit more frantic, and felt the weird, silent thrill, like I'd flicked a switch they didn't know I possessed. Sam patted out, towel over his neck, and peered at my phone. "They're losing it." A half smile tugged at his lips as he said. I put the phone face down and nodded. "Permit them." I meant what I said. I wasn't rushing to clean up their mess for once. Then my phone rang once again. It was an Instagram notice rather than an SMS. I ought not to have seen, but I was intrigued. Jake told the story. A selfie of Tara and herself, smiling in front of neon club lights. Captioned, "When it matters, true family is present." I felt like I was slapped by the timestamp, 8:47 p.m. Indeed, he uploaded it last night, just as I was reciting my vows in a tremulous voice under the drooping lights. My throat constricted as I read through the comments hours after I had left the conversation, as if he wanted me to see it. Cousins are enjoying it. A couple heart eyes and yes, emojis. Nobody brings me up. Nobody inquired about my whereabouts. Not only have I been removed from their day, but also from their narrative, become a footnote they could make fun of. The phone fell on the cushion. I balled my hands into fists. Sam sat next to me, his wet shoulder grazing mine, after noticing my face. "Now what?" His voice was quiet as he inquired. His jaw tensed as I showed him the post. "Even for him, that's low," he added. I let my rage to stew as I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. I could have called them out and texted back, but why would I do that? They said I was theatrical and twisted. As usual, they were overly sensitive. Rather, I imagined Jake frantically trying to get his Hulu to load as he was stuck at a gas stop during a binge. Mom was struggling with a flashlight as the power went off. My overtime checks were the foundation around which they constructed their life. Every time they stumbled, I would definitely assist, and now the earth was buckling. I never once looked down to see who was holding the ropes while I stitched their safety nets for years, while they were walking a tightrope. What did I receive for a wedding that they failed to attend? As well as a brother who would rather brag for Tara than do anything for me. The Instagram post was a knife, not simply salt on the wound, and he smiled as he twisted it. Sam's hand, rough and warm from his warehouse job, found mine. He traced circles on my knuckles with his thumb and muttered, "They're not worth this. They've had enough from you." I felt a twinge as I looked into his steady hazel eyes, something more intense than hurt. He was correct. I believed that was what love looked like, so I poured myself into them until I was hollow. Love doesn't make you invisible, though. Selfies aren't posted while you're making a lifelong commitment to someone else. I gave his hand a stronger squeeze than I intended. I have finished carrying them. For the first time in days, I spoke firmly. With a nod, he drew me close to him, and we sat there with their cries unheard and the phone silent. A dog was barking down the street. Vehicles were driving by, and the world buzzed outside. But we were alone in here, and I felt like I had won because of the weight I had lost. They were free to panic as they pleased. I was no longer their rescuer, as well as the Instagram picture. It just demonstrated why I had interrupted the tranquility and ended it. At first, it felt unreal, like if I were holding my breath for the guilt to strike. I didn't. Rather, I sat with a broken tea mug in my hands on our balcony that afternoon and let my thoughts to wander. I had to realize how I'd ended up here, how I'd allowed them to deplete me until my wedding was nothing more than a piece of paper. It began the year my father left, when I was 17 years old. Mom was inconsolable, sobbing into her mountain of coffee bills. After school, I got a job ringing up candy bars and cigarettes at the corner store. I would tell her it's okay and hand her my paycheck. I don't require much. She would also give me a hug. You can call me her rock. At the time, Kara, 19, was pursuing a loser who would wreck her car and leave her stranded, while Jake, 15, was slipping out of DJ basement parties. It was everything kept together by me, whomever failed to breach it by 21. While they were struggling, I had saved up enough money for a beat-up Toyota. Jake searches for unoccupied rooms while spinning music. Kara alternates between the worst lovers and unfulfilling careers. The request began modestly. "I need food. Or can you find me $100 for rent from Jake?" For Mom, just once? Since they were relatives, I would say yes, since I was able to. However, once became always. While others leaned harder, I took on more shifts and skipped evenings out. When Jake vowed to become wealthy someday, his $100 turned into $1,000. After she wrecked her vehicle trunk, food and cars turned into $300 in penalties. No coverage, Mom's medications and utilities. Only until I'm able to stand again. It summed up. After $25,000, I stopped counting, but I mentally noted every late-night wire and each year's lifeline before it faded to stillness. They would give me accolades. The strong one is you, the adhesive, until it was no longer praise, only an anticipation. Something changed when I met Sam at the age of 29. He noticed me, nor the bank, nor the fixer, only me. In our small flat, we established a life, and I gave in to my desire when he proposed. A wedding? A day I owned. Over dinner one evening, I told them about it, my voice trembling with optimism. "That's sweet," Mom remarked with a weak grin. "But you'll figure it out, right?" Jake grinned. "It sounds cool." Not a huge deal. Kara never even raised her head from her phone. I ought to have noticed it back then. Their interest was phony, their gestures false. But I persisted, making plans by myself and requesting crumbs of assistance. They had no intention of crying. The wedding was unique. 2L and catering for her third engagement. Without blinking, they all RSVP. To get there, I would Venmo Mom $200 for petrol. I didn't realize I would need them that same weekend. My day was too peaceful and too short, too dull to be of any use. I saw the pattern when I looked back. They forgot I could fall because I had been their crutch for so long. Jake didn't make it. He texted me for Hulu while crashing on friends' couches, passwords, automobiles. The problem grew worse, DUIs and evictions. I also tidied them up. I believed it validated my goodness. Like I was her second chance, mom depended on me, not her daughter. They offered me nothing but wait in exchange for my money, time, and faith. That was altered by Sam. After my shifts, he had prepared dinner for me. Inquire about my drawings. Remember that I wasn't only a tool for them. My line in the sand was my wedding. This is my first genuine request. They were unable to even act as though they cared. There were limos and applause for Tara's night. On Instagram, mine received a smack and shrugs. I became aware that I had been blind while I sipped my tea, the steam swirling in the chilly air. To my own value, not to their shortcomings. For them, love meant bleeding dry, in my opinion. I had to bear the burden of their shortcomings because of their family. However, it doesn't. It didn't. And I knew I wasn't going back to that lie out here, with Sam's laugh resonating from within and the city humming below. For several days following my cord cutting, like a storm coming in, they arrived without warning. The doorbell buzzed quickly and loudly as I was in the kitchen cutting onions for supper. From the couch, Sam arched an eyebrow, but I recognized the person. After cleaning my hands and inhaling, I opened the door. Mom entered first, her expression stiff with the teacher's disappointment. Look, she had mastered it, and your outburst has gone far enough. She crossed her arms and snapped. Jake sprawled in my armchair as if he owned it, slouching behind her hoodie. Kara arrived last, hurling her suitcase angrily onto the counter. Her gaze is piercing. You're really upset about a small party, she replied in a scornful tone. The air grew thicker as I stood there with the knife from the cutting board still in my hand. They had not come to offer an apology. As usual, they would come to demand that I remedy their disarray. Slowly and deliberately, I put down the knife and turned to face them. I said in a steady, low voice that it wasn't a party. I got married. Despite the years I've borne you all, you picked Tara's night over me. I took a step forward, my words gushing. I have paid your rent and subscriptions, Jake. Your phone, your justifications, your penalties, thousands, Cora, Mom, your medications, your debts. You were unable to handle each time. I requested one day, and you were unable to even appear. Their expressions went cold, taken by surprise. I wasn't finished, though. You remembered. You concluded that I was unimportant. After a long moment of silence, Mom waved a hand as if to wave it away. As casually as though she had pawned an antique lamp, she continued, We sold your veil on eBay. After the commotion, I assumed you were done with it. My veil. Stitching for hours, my silent pride. $25 is gone. I maintained my position despite my impaired eyesight. Cora leaned against the counter and snorted. Additionally, I purchased a patio gift with your venue deposit. Smirking, she continued. It wasn't being used by you, so I purchased the spa package for her, $200. Well worth the money. I gasped. My confidence and savings were in that deposit. She had snatched it as if it were spare coins. I held on to the edge of the counter, anger erupting. You took anything from me? My voice trembled as I spoke. You two. Angry. Jake glanced up at last. Relax. It's not very profound. You're behaving as though we murdered someone. Mom gave a nod. This is being exaggerated by you. We are not your adversaries. We are family. They were surprised by my scathing, resentful chuckle. Family, I said. Your family doesn't abandon you. Sell your belongings, take your money, and then pretend that you're the issue. Lila entered. She had then heard everything while in the restroom. She paused abruptly, her eyes wide, and moved to stand next to me. She glared at them and muttered, You're unbelievable. When she stops contributing, you act like a jerk and take her deposit by selling her veil. I hadn't yet discovered the rage that made her voice shake. You're not related. You are parasites. Mom lost her temper. Lila, don't get involved. Lila, however, shook her head. No, I'm finished after witnessing her bleed for you. The door clicked shut like a gunshot as she grabbed her jacket and left. I looked back at them. Now calm down, Chili. I'm no longer your bank. You can't fix me. Leave now. At first, they remained still. Jake laughed. This is something you will regret. Kara grabbed her luggage and rolled her eyes. So dramatic. I wish you well without us. Mom stayed. She opened her mouth as if to argue, then shut it. You'll return with a stutter. Muttering, she trailed after them. The apartment became silent when the door banged. Sam got up and took 3 steps toward me, placing his hands on my shoulders. Are you all right? He looked into my face and asked. Slowly, I nodded. The deposit, their claim, and the weight of their words and deeds resting in the veil. It went beyond simple treachery. Theft was committed, nasty and purposeful. However, as I stood there feeling Sam's warmth against me, I sensed something substantial. I called it and sent them packing. Both the pain and the spark were intense and raw. I was done bending, it declared, a harsh, unyielding creature. Weeks passed after they stormed out, and their world began to fall apart. Like a house of cards that I had ceased to support, piece by piece. Jake's electricity was cut off. A common buddy contacted me. He was cursing my name while sofa surfing one more. When Corey was unable to pay the lease, her automobile was towed. She left a harsh voicemail for me. I'm stuck. Are you responsible for this? Mom's phone stopped working. There was only one email in place of her texts. The heat is off. There are a lot of bills. How did you accomplish this? I didn't answer. With my knees curled beneath me, I sat on our couch and allowed their remarks to reverberate off the walls without really registering. They're figuring out life without you, Sam remarked, as he observed me from the kitchen while he stirred a pot of chili. I gave a nod. A little smile tugged at my mouth. I remarked, about time, and that seemed accurate. I was no longer burdened by their disarray. They had no idea what to do with it once I returned it. It wasn't all quiet, though. A week later, Kara phoned once again. Her voice broke, softer. I apologize for my mistake, shall I? That money wasn't mine to take. I paid attention. Hover your finger over delete and see it happen. I understand that I'm in a mess right now. I leaned too much. I didn't return her call, but her voice cracked. Jake used a new strategy and went on a tirade on Twitter. Some individuals disregard blood for trivial matters. Loyalty is dead. He received 3 likes, Kara's 1. Mom wrote a letter written by hand. Shaky claims that even if we're having difficulties, we are still your family. Consider that. After the first sentence, I folded it, unopened, into a drawer. I didn't feel the need to capitulate, even if they wanted me to. Their guilt trips drowned me for years. I remained dry and stable on shore this time. Then the light appeared. At first, Layla texted me memes every day. Then a true celebration is in order. She organized a late reception with Tom, Sam's brother. Tom's yard had only 12 persons folding tables. Like stars, fairy lights strung up. I was dressed in jeans. Sam wearing a flannel. Layla created a playlist and we danced to it. When the speakers cracked, I laughed. No one made any requests for cash or favors. Simply arrived. Hugs and potluck dishes in my hands. A parcel later showed up at our door. Not a word. Only a quilt. Stitched with small stars, soft and blue. I knew it was from Jake's ex-girlfriend Mia. Even when he wasn't, she had always been nice. My throat constricted as I laid it over our couch and ran my fingers over the strands. From this silent evidence, not from suffering. I wasn't alone myself, not at all. Suddenly, Tara texted too. Apologies. They're terrible. I ought to have stated that earlier. Thank you, I typed back. And left it there. I didn't yet need to cross a little bridge. Their mess continued to whirl. Jake's DJ equipment was stolen by a pawn shop. For not showing up, Carr was dismissed from her job. I didn't bat an eyelid when Mom's landlord received warnings. One night I took a walk around our flat. Behind me, Sam was humming as he sensed the change in the air while he cleaned dishes. No ringing phone. Please, no late night. Only us. Without their weight, our tiny life piece came together. I realized I was done waiting when I paused at the window and looked out at the flashing streetlights below, nor because they changed, nor because they apologized. I could still hear Layla's laugh from that gathering. Sam's voice brought me back to the present as Maya's quilt warmed my palms. I constructed a little object, sloppy, actual. They were also unable to touch it. The curtain has vanished, the deposit as well. However, I was no longer defined by what they had stolen. I looked across at Sam. He joined him at the sink, knocking into my hip as his sleeves rolled up. You're humming incoherently. He smiled and splashed me with suds for the first time in weeks as I mocked him. I let out a big chuckle and realized that I had survived the storm. Stronger, not just intact. 8 weeks have passed since I closed the door on them, and I'm doing more than simply getting by. In a manner I never imagined possible, I'm alive. It is presently silent in the flat. I wasn't drawn into their problems by a buzzing phone. In the kitchen, Sam and I danced to classic rock tunes. Maya's quilt hung like an embrace across the couch. Lila insists that teal is my color and stops by with paint swatches for our walls. I have also resumed my drawing. Faces, wildflowers, and things I had forgotten I cherished. The veil's sting persists. Cora's skillful bites. I can't stop thinking about Jake's post. I don't bend, though. I take a higher stance with relaxed shoulders. Take a deep breath. Car starts sending texts. I hope all is well with you. I don't respond, yet I miss you. Not with malice, just some clarification. I'm no longer her lifeline. Jake's tirades against phony relatives on Twitter. Quiet down. Don't give him any likes. Mom ceased contacting me. Her disappearance was abrupt but inevitable. The weight they attach to me is not something I miss. One day, if I have children, I will be honest with them. You don't have to pay for love. A chain is not a family. Here's where I constructed mine. Sam. Steady hands. Layla's intense devotion. Tara's silent apologies. Even the quilted tenderness of Mia. I'm not the unseen sister, the bank, or the fixer. For the first time, I'm entire. I felt protected last night as I stood in our bedroom under the warm warmth of the lamp. Not from assurances or support, but from the knowledge that I have myself. They described me as frigid, theatrical, and self-centered, and I accepted it. Until I recognized them for what they were, I carried their labels. To keep myself little, I tell lies. I am not the bad guy for deciding on peace, for protecting the life that Sam and I are creating. It was me who passed through their flames without getting burnt. They continue to spin their pandemonium out there. However, is no longer my tale. Light awakens me. No guilt muttering that I let them down. Sam is correct when he says, I smile more. It feels free and wild to me. I choose myself. They will never forgive if that is the offense. I will happily wear it. My legacy is this: a vertebra, a heart, a life of mine. We appreciate you viewing the video. If you were moved by this tale, please comment below. You say, it may seem insignificant, but it gives me the strength to continue creating every day. I'll see you in the upcoming video. Story 3. I appreciate the journey. My sister smirked and remarked, but nobody wants a mechanic at the reunion. I canceled the tow, drove away, and shrugged. I made a reservation for Uncle Ray's vehicle. I laughed and went out to a cabin in the Smoky Mountains by myself. A day later, as I stood in the community center's dirt lot, my phone sprang to life. The little odor of oil that clings to my palms. After adjusting my sister Lauren's vintage Mustang that morning, my knuckles were still covered in grease. For weeks, she pleaded with me to get everything up and running so she could make her big entry at the family gathering. I delivered at our family reunion. I work as a mechanic. It has always been. The man who keeps everyone's wheels turning when string lights are shining. Lauren lifted her drink as the room echoed with clinking glasses and laughing. Her voice broke through the commotion. Jake, hello. I appreciate the trip, but nobody wants to attend the reunion as a technician. She grinned. Beside her, her new fiancé Matt was laughing as if it were an inside joke. The audience froze. Uncles, aunts, and cousins, some laughing awkwardly, others gazing at their potato salad plates. Her remarks hit me like a thrown wrench when I was wearing worn flannel boots that were scuffed from sliding under her car. Even when my chest constricted, I faked a smile and muttered, I guess not, before retreating into the lot's darkness. Something shattered inside. Not too loud, only a soft snap. I had scrounged components with my own money and skipped sleep for weeks to get the Mustang to purr. To give her a chance to shine, I drove her here for 2 hours. I was the joke now. I saw them toast as I stood there. She got engaged. Her ideal existence with Matt. The light catches her golden hair. Me, the man in the corner, was me, invisible. With the exception of my sleeve stains. Her remarks weren't the only thing that hurt. It was the reality they carried. All my life, I had been cleaning up their filth, and I was grateful for this. They danced as the music intensified. I decided. I had had enough of being their greasy rescuer. Not anymore. Not after tonight. I didn't get any sleep following the reunion. With the engine off, I sat in my vehicle and gazed at the dashboard as if it might explain why I had let it go so far. I kept thinking about Lauren's sneer and the sparkle in her eye as she made fun of me. I kept her life on course for years, specifically when she wrecked her first vehicle. I took it to the garage, fixed it for free, and didn't say a thing while I was sobbing and intoxicated at 2 a.m. I paid her rent so she wouldn't lose her lease when she quit her job as a barista, because coffee smells bad. Mom's vehicle broke down the previous winter. I told it, fixed the gearbox, and paid for it. Lauren was away pursuing a love for photography that never brought in any money. I was too busy doing doubles at the garage to support us all, so I couldn't afford to go trade school. She had a dream that I had calluses. I had finished stewing by morning. At the gathering, Uncle Ray had surrounded me and complained about the broken axle on his pickup. "The only person that can mend it cheap is you, Jake." Clapping my shoulder as if I owed him, he murmured. That evening, I had scheduled a tow for him, but I quickly texted him to cancel. Work things out. Then, with trembling fingers, I browsed through hotel websites and reserved a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. 3 days. No Wi-Fi. The woods and me alone. As I packed a bag, Lauren texted, "Where do you go, Jake?" "The Mustang is stalling once more. Matt is furious." I chuckled. Didn't respond and made a dry, hollow sound. At my flat, let her handle it. I rummaged through a shoebox beneath my bed, finding faded and crumpled receipts. Her Mustang cost $214.67 in total over 2 years. I have a new carburetor, brake pads, and spark plugs. Over the years, I passed off excursions with friends that would have helped me save money so that I could see her smile when the automobile roared to life. What did I receive? A mechanic is not wanted. I was awakened by the words, even if they burned. I was their grunt, their pit crew, and their ATM, but I was never on par with them. I reflected on the time I gave Lauren the keys following a complete overhaul last Christmas. Yes, she had given me a hug, but she also boasted to Matt's wealthy parents that she had fixed it herself. I would overlook it. Did every time. Once more, my phone buzzed. "Lauren says you bailed this time, Mom. What's the matter with you?" Nothing. For once, I wanted to yell. Nothing. I didn't respond, though. I picked up my keys, threw the receipts back in the box, and made my way to the truck. I turned on the radio to block off the guilt that was beginning to seep in during the 4-hour journey to the Smokies. When Dad lost his work, I was usually the one who fixed his truck, and Kim's sedan after her ex-boyfriend stole the nice vehicle. I mended lives and tires, and all I got in return was a pat on the head and oil under my nails. Lauren, a pleasant 28-year-old, was the standout. I was always picking up the slack while they worked things out. I had paid for her to drop out of art school, dismissed it with a laugh. "Many thanks, my friend. You are the greatest." And I grinned foolishly. I stopped halfway up the mountain, the engine cooling and ticking. The air had a crisp, pungent pine scent. The oil-saturated garage is nothing like it. I gazed down at the valley while leaning on the hood. Last year, I had forfeited my chance for a higher job, principal mechanic in a larger shop, because my mother pleaded with me to be close to relatives. The mere notion of moving had caused Lauren to lose her temper. I can't have that piece of crap automobile left to me. As she shared photos and messages about living her truth, I remained hunched over engines. The truth? I was the foundation of her truth. At twilight, I arrived at the decrepit cottage with a crumbling porch. I dropped my backpack and opened one of my 6-pack of beers. My phone came back to life. "Lauren, I mean it, Jake, make this right. If you don't, we'll be trapped tomorrow. Are you stranded?" As if I had never been stranded before, devoted to their requirements. For the first time in years, I turned it off, took a long drink, and let the stillness descend. I wasn't rushing to help someone. I knew one thing, but I had no idea what would happen next. Without me today, they would have to roll. I didn't care if that Mustang rusted. On the first morning mist swirling through the trees, the Smokies were silent. As if stretching awake, the cabin creaked. Curiosity got the better of me last night, so I turned off my phone. It buzzed like a kicked bee when I turned it on over coffee. The first to flash was Lauren's name. The voicemail was left around 7 a.m. "MJAKE, Last night, the Mustang died on the freeway. Matt missed his largest client's dinner. For this, you owe us. When we needed you, you abandoned us. There was no trace of the sister who had relied on me for years in her voice. It was all edges. With my mouth clenched, I erased it. She hadn't even inquired about my well-being, simply assumed. I leaped behind the hood once more. Lauren was stopped at a petrol station when her mother texted her, "Jake, you have to make this right. Family never abandons family." The words blurred as I gazed at the screen, family. That only applied when they needed anything, which is funny. I bit my bare feet as I went out onto the porch in the chilly wood and attempted to control the rage that was building inside of me. In order to avoid being pulled back into their mess, I spent 3 days up here to get my mind straight. Then I opened Facebook, though. A stupid move. With the comment, "Thanks to my deadbeat brother for screwing us over," Lauren shared a picture of the Mustang hood up on the side of I-40. Nights ruined, cars toasted. Comments quickly accumulated. Last spring, I dragged a relative out of a ditch, and Jake sent a typical letter, never trustworthy. A friend from high school who had given me a free tool loan said, "My throat ached. I put 2 years of effort into the vehicle. She had turned my effort and money into a falsehood. She didn't talk about how I drove her, or about her smirk or the reunion. A Mustang is there. She could never have afforded it. I was just portrayed as the flake." I walked the cottage after tossing the phone onto the couch. The floors creak under me. That post was a gut punch, rather than only a jab. People the first had assisted were nodding along with her narrative as if I were the idiot. The mountain air prevented me from driving back and shoving the facts in her face, so I grabbed my keys instead. I'm not here to crawl back, I'm here to escape, so I stayed. While sitting by the window, observing deer sifting through the brush, I brewed another pot of coffee. The anger persisted. It simmered steadily and gradually. Similar to an engine that overheats in the afternoon, I went on a hike to a creek. My head was drowned out by the sound of the water rush. Her smirk from the reunion was still there, but with that post added, it was meaner and sharper. Her ability to spin things had always been strong. When I wouldn't drop everything, I would cry and tell my mother, convincing her father that she was the victim. She was my little sister, so I would overlook it. For younger years, the one for whom I was meant to watch out. However, this. Knowing that I would witness it and that it had spread, she was twisting the knife in public. I watched a rock sink after kicking it into the stream. Since she was 16, I had cleaned up her mess. Her fender bender, her emergency oil change prior to a date with meth, and her dead battery in a snowstorm. And now I was the deadbeat. Back at the cabin, I checked my phone again. Couldn't help it. More texts. "Dad, Lauren's a wreck. You're gonna step up or what? Aunt Kim heard you left her high and dry. Not cool, Jake." Nothing from Lauren. Just her minions piling on. I almost typed a reply. A long one with every receipt I'd kept. Every favor I'd done. But what was the point? They'd seen me as the grease-stained grunt for years. Reliable until I wasn't. I shut the phone off again, grabbed a beer and sat outside as the sun dipped low. The quiet was supposed to feel good, but it didn't. Not quite yet. It was heavy, like the moment before storm breaks. I thought about calling Cora my ex. She'd always said Lauren played me like a fiddle, that I'd never see it until it broke me. I hadn't listened then, but now her words rang true. I didn't text her, not ready for that. But I knew one thing. Lauren's post wasn't just a lie. It was a line in the sand. She'd made me the villain to save her own skin. And I wasn't running back to repair it this time. Let her figure out how to start that Mustang. I was done turning the key for her. I got back from the Smokies on Tuesday. The cabin still hanging to me like wet air. The trip home was lengthy. My truck's hum. The only sound I desired. I kept my phone off since Lauren's Facebook stunt. But the second I got inside my flat, Dad's name lighted up the screen. I responded, preparing for the guilt trip. "Jake," he said, voice low and harsh. "Lauren's telling everyone you took pieces from her Mustang before the reunion. Says that's why it broke down. People are upset." I froze, the duffel dropping from my shoulder, took parts I paid for every darn bolt. She turned it into theft after taking hundreds out of my pocket. She's telling lies. My voice was flat as I spoke. Dad gave a groan. In any case, half of her family believes it. You must resolve this. Before I could argue, he hung up. The weight of it weighed heavily on me as I collapsed into the couch. The deadbeat post comes first. This now. A full-scale campaign of smears. Uncle Ray was on the family group chat when I opened it. Lauren's automobile was torn off by her Jake. Aunt Kim? It explains a lot. Not surprised, but disappointing. Tara, my cousin, was always aware of his dubious nature. Shady? 2 summers ago, I told Tara's vehicle to get out of mud. No fee. For pennies, I had repaired Ray's truck. I browsed as my hands trembled. Lauren's falsehood destroyed years of favors. She had stolen my name, my money, and my job. To avoid her own mess, she twisted it. Every time they wrote a word, I could hear her smirk. I was unable to sit still. She had a duplex that she had only retained because I paid her deposit, so I took my keys and drove to her house. In a bathrobe, her hair disheveled as if I had disrupted her idyllic existence, she opened the door. Now what? Jake? She lost her temper. Matt smirked as he relaxed on the couch behind her. Telling others that I took from you? Holding up a folder, I said. All of you have receipts. Time stamped. I paid for it everything, as this demonstrates. She gave an eye roll. All you're feeling is jealousy. I'm getting promoted. Matt has a legitimate career. Carburetors are not clients. Matt gave a snort. Man, grease monkeys don't understand. You are beyond your capabilities. I left the packet at her door. Read it or not. I'm finished, she chuckled. Cold and sharp. You'll be sorry you left. We are related. You can't give up. Her remarks gnawed at me as I got into my pickup and drove away. Feeling sorry? The only thing I regret is the amount of time I spent letting her play me at home. After pouring some whiskey, I took a seat at my kitchen table. The contents of the folder are displayed in black and white from 3 to 14.67. To her, family meant a free pass. But to me, it meant loyalty. It buzzed on my phone. My ex Cora responded to a text message I sent from the Smoky Mountains. I've had enough of them. She didn't say much. Excellent. I came across the post. For that, she is garbage. I returned the type. I stole now, she says. Unable to win. She answered quickly. You don't need to give up. I spent a long time staring at that. 3 years earlier, Cora had left because she was sick of seeing me go above and beyond to help Lauren in her time of need. Her nagging, her rent, and her automobile. The punching bag they use is inferior to you. Then she had said, I didn't think she was real. I did now. It stabilized me, but the whiskey burned as I went down. The Mustang wasn't the only thing Lauren lied about. The goal was to keep me little, the grunt who kept giving in, while she hopped between boyfriends and poor ideas. I had been supporting her throughout my 20s. I'm always grateful, dude. A smile that never made it to her eyes. Matt's remark made me feel like my job was a joke, not the spine that powered their existence. The chair creaked as I reclined. This post might be fought by me, my own internet evidence. Call her out. However, why? They had chosen their side already. She is more charming than I am. I drained a drink and decided. Her fire had run out of fuel. Allow her to tell her tales. This one I wasn't fixing. I received an email 2 days after I dropped the receipts off at Lawrence. Her name is bolded. Subject, you owe us. It was worse than the jab I was expecting when I opened it. A $1,800 bill. $1,200 for emergency, Mustang repairs, and $600 for highway and reunion-related emotional harm. At the bottom, break a line down. We'll let everyone know you're avoiding accountability if you don't read your pay before Friday. The term drowned out the thump in my chest as I laughed loudly and darkly and tore it up in my paper shredder. Now she wasn't lying. She was taking advantage of my long-standing folding habit to extort me. Not now. I took out a USB stick that I had been using since the Smokies and my laptop. Facebook receipts that brand me a deadbeat, screenshots of her pleading texts, and now this. I had finished my defensive game. When Saturday finally arrived, Mom called to tell me that they were having a family cookout at their house. Jake, she murmured softly. Like if preparing a guilt trip, we need to talk. I nearly answered no, but then I understood. Why conceal? I bring everything with me when I travel. At 6 p.m., I arrived with a rucksack draped over my shoulder and a pickup parked crookedly in their driveway. The backyard was packed. Lauren and Matt are whispering near the picnic table as Dad flips hamburgers and Kim drinks lemonade. When I entered, they all became silent. You've had your say, I replied. placing my laptop on a folding chair and plugging it in via USB. It's mine now. Mom shifted about. Don't cause a scene, Jake. Disregarding her, I pressed play. Lauren, 2022 first texts. Jake Carr is dead once more. Please assist. You are the greatest. The receipt folder comes next. $3, $2, 14.67. Every line has my name on it. Then we were duped by her post-deadbeat brother. I stopped it. After I gave her Mustang a free rebuild, that is. I got begun. Tara is even dead, Uncle Ray. Once more, I clicked. A voicemail from the previous week. Lauren complaining. For the client meal, you owe us. Matt failed to make it. At last, the email appeared large on the screen. The bottom of $1,800 asked for her signature. I stole part 2, she claims. Voice was added by me. Steady. Verify the dates. I covered everything. The air was heavy with silence. Only the chirping of a cricket broke the silence. Face red, Lauren stood. This is being twisted by you. You left us. Matt gave a nod. Crossed arms. I stared at her as composed as I could be. Left behind. I have served as your doormat, bank, and mechanic. You're charging me for your outburst after lying that I stole. Mom moved forward, wringing her fists. Jake, there's a misunderstanding. It wasn't her intention. I interrupted her. She spoke with sincerity. You did too, retaining it. Dad forcefully put down the spatula. Over a vehicle? You're destroying this family? I looked over at him. No, Father. I will no longer be your spare tire. You continue to support her after allowing her to disparage me twice. I took out my phone and accessed a draft email I had prepared for the entire family. Lauren's supervisor at the boutique where she worked part-time was another. There, she would boast about my worthless brother from the previous month. A colleague had told me about it. The USB files are attached, pal. Every falsehood exposed. In 10 minutes, this will be sent out. Let them choose who the deadbeat is, I replied. I closed the laptop before Lauren could reach for it. Without us, you are nothing at all. She let out a scream. I looked her in the eyes. With you, I was nothing. That's the distinction, Matt whispered. Horrible. He refused to look at me, though. I secured my rucksack. Savor the burgers? I hope they're more tasty than your justifications. To go to my pickup, I walked. My face felt chilly against the breeze. I was called after by Mom. Please, Jake. I didn't look around. From the driver's seat, I clicked send on the email. Years of stillness were broken by the whoosh sound. My hands remained steady. No more. I took off in my car. In my rear view, the BBQ is becoming smaller and sensed a fresh brightness. As though I had dropped the toolbox I had been carrying about since I was a child. Lauren could let out a cry. Dad could get angry. But I had explained everything. No more hiding their shit under shadows. I switched the radio on, and classic rock tune about liberation, and let it to take me home. Now, they would either see the truth or they wouldn't. I wasn't there anyhow. No more fix-it, man. I stayed at the BBQ instead of going home. I chased the sunset by driving west till I came to a lake in Tennessee. Under the stars, the water was motionless and dark. The engine of my truck purred. My job, my hands. And it wasn't towing someone else's wreck for once. By daybreak, the email I had sent had exploded. Lauren sent a text. To me, you're dead. She was dumped by Matt. Tara also called to report that the family was in disarray. She may let it to burn her falsehoods, referring to me as a deadbeat. Although they had injured me deeply, a thief had also freed me from my chains. I parked close to the coast, took a deep breath, and cracked open a beer. No ringing phone, no guilt. Only me. Over drinks, Kara's pickup kicked up dust when she met me there the next day. She smiled. Jake, you have regained your fire. You took too long. Her pride bandaged a wound I hadn't mentioned. But we didn't reignite anything. My phone then sprang to life. Strangers following Tara's tirade on TikTok. We were devastated by Jake the Jerk. Backfired remarks began to appear. He is legendary. This one hit me hard. So I cut off contact with my own poisonous sister. I gave up, trying to improve my dad's life. Many thanks, dude. I didn't want to step up and be a hero. Mom arrived at my house a few days later in an attempt to make one more appeal. Without you, we're lost. Her eyes were moist as she spoke through the screen door. When you chose her, you lost me. I said lies and closed it. I was relieved when her footsteps stopped. I made plans to travel west by car. The roadway is open. No due dates. The last I heard, Lauren's Mustang was trashed. She is also FL pursuing on her own. I don't care about the family's broken finger pointing. Thank you for the reunion, I said in a whisper, as I lifted my drink to the sky that night beside the lake. Freedom was more powerful than their approbation. I lived under their thumbs and beneath hoods for years. Considering family means bearing the consequences, I now understand that it's a two-way street. Additionally, they had abandoned me. I'm no longer their mechanic, I'm just Jake, going it alone. And that's sufficient. We appreciate you viewing the video. If you are moved by this tale, please comment below. You say, it may seem insignificant, but it gives me the strength to continue creating every day. I'll see you in the upcoming video.